And we're live.
Oh my goodness, we're so excited to be here on this beautiful April afternoon. And we were having a good chat before we hit record about some of the synergies that have been happening in our lives and within our families. So both Saket and
Yeah.
I had a very unique health scare within our immediate families over the past week. So we were kind of marveling at the way that that has played out for the two of us, weren't we?
Yeah, it is kind of like you sometimes reflect back on why we do what we do. And, most of us are lost in external successes. And a
Mhm,
lot of us, I think, I believe that and I have a very small sample size of my
mhm,
immediate friends and family, but it's pretty apparent that the focus always has been outward success, which is measured by money, but then you lose control of your health and your relationship with your family, immediate family, extended family. And then
mhm.
when there's an health scares, there's my father-in-law just went into an ICU for an emergency heart procedure, and it just kind of shook us and it kind of made me question a lot. Where yeah, money is important. Yes, success is important. Yes, having a comfortable life is important. But he was given 2 days that he could be gone in 2 days if he didn't do something. And if we were to operate him, we would have lost him anyways because the risk was too high, right? And those are the moments you realize where all the petty things we do, and I'm passing the judgment on me. I'm not passing a judgment on any listener at this point. All the petty things we fight for, we argue for, we strive for, we run around for. Life's so fragile. It could be gone, right? It could be gone in literally in 2 days for my father-in-law. I mean, luckily he survived. Luckily, we were able to find a treatment, but he's still in the hospital. So it's still
Mhm,
emotional up and down. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we couldn't record last week,
mhm.
because we were just coming out of that stuff. And but yeah, I think I'm sure Brooke is same for you with your family's health scares that you had. It's kind of like it gives you a perspective, and it makes you think harder about your choices in life and how and who you want to spend time with.
Absolutely, and I think it makes it very tangible. And up until that point, I think that you're consciously aware on some plane or on some level that
Yeah.
something could happen to somebody that you care about. But until it is real, until it is tangible, until it's something that you see, it doesn't have the same effect.
No, and especially when it hits so close, right? So close. And I think most of my audience would know the story of my me losing my sister and my mom. While it hurt me a lot, they were not in the US. I was a little far removed physically, right? So there
Hmm.
was an emotional gap where if I came away 6, 7,000 miles, at least I'm not distant. At least I'm a little bit far removed. This is in my face. I mean, they're 4 hours drive away. We were there at the hospital.
And
I'm
you're really
listening.
forced to confront
You're
visual
forced to
images and
confront it.
things that you don't want to
Yeah,
see.
you don't want, and I don't know if any one of you, hospitals drains my energy. They do. And I'm like, is it because of me, or it's just that there's so much happening in the hospital at different levels, and no one is living in the house, staying in the hospital by choice. Is because
Well,
they
they're a
have.
very sterile, stagnant environment.
Yeah, and it's very sad when I mean, it's real, but it's sad at the same time because there's no happy faces in the hospital, and if there are, they're probably tired of being sad, so they're forcing the smile because they can't live in that sadness for the whole time, right? It's kind of seeing that. I'm like, that's, and we were in the ICU area. I'm seeing so many people so fragile, young lives, old lives, children. It's just kind of sad to see that around, that we don't have the perspective. I should say. I can't speak we, as I don't want to make a broad
Right.
statement. I don't have that perspective, and somehow I need a reminder on a day-to-day basis. Intellectually, I know,
Mhm.
right? I think most of us know intellectually that because either we are sick, or we have been sick, or people around us have been sick. So most of us intellectually know, but we forget. And then there's life kicks you again, and you get reminded again, and then you forget, and then life kicks you again, then you get reminded again, and then this push and pull keeps going on, and one day you're gone.
right.
Sorry,
And
I'm
I
making
think
it more
too,
morbid than it is. That's not. I'm not unhappy.
no, we're
Um,
not being morbid, but I think you have spoken a lot about, and you said to me many, many times that up until more recently in your life, you didn't prioritize your own health.
no, don't.
And
I
that is
didn't.
a reminder of that too. How do you balance business and life so that you can take care of yourself, so that
Yeah,
you aren't prematurely sentencing yourself to health issues?
and I think it says another aspect to it. You, for us individually,
Right.
of course, we want to be in a perfect health for us, whatever that means for us, right? But the bigger problem that I saw is and I even felt it with my mom and my dad and my sister, caretakers. I think if we don't want to be healthy for our sake, we have to be healthy for our caretakers' sake because
That's a really interesting perspective,
the amount of
especially
toll
from
it
a man, because
takes.
caretakers are traditionally women.
They are right, and I know my mom took care of my dad, and then no one was there to take care of her when she was sick. And I'm pretty sure my dad would do not be able to do as much as my mom did. I'm not saying it's gender specific, but caretakers, men or women or children, depending upon what age a caretaker is or what gender they are, I think it takes a lot of toll on them. Because worst case scenario, as I always say, worst case scenario, somebody's sick, they're gonna pass away, right? Matter of time, maybe not now, maybe eventually if you're sick, or you recover and everything will be fine. There's only two outcomes. There's no third outcome. Hopefully, you're not dragging it because it's a drag that it's. But in all incidents, in all scenarios that get played out, it's the caretaker. They have the
Mhm.
biggest burden. So if you can't be healthy for yourselves, and this is the same for me, if I can't be healthy for myself, I have to be healthy for my kids and for my wife. Not because I want to spend time with them for selfish reasons. It's because I don't want to be a burden on them.
Right,
Right?
because
What
you
kind of
want
love
your
would that be?
girls to go live their dreams, right?
Yeah. I don't want them to say, "Hey, dad's sick. Go lift him up, put him on a chair." If I mean, I may get there even if I'm healthy, but if I have a choice, why would
Mhm.
I choose that, right? I think that's really where it's a lot of those things. It's a good reminder, and the outcome is going in a positive direction, so it's all good. But regardless, I think this gives you a pause of what exactly, and to give you a perspective, we were also raising capital along this way. We
Mhm.
have an amazing opportunity right now to invest along with us in an ATM operation deal, which is giving phenomenal returns. Probably one of the best returns I've seen in my investing career, and I've been investing in ATMs for a while. So it's kind of like, should I just let it go, or do
Mhm.
I make a few phone calls to help people? Because I'm like, you
Right,
know what, this is the way for people to buy their time back, right? So it actually lit a great fire, but those conversations were very focused. Those investors were very targeted. They were not random social media calls. You probably never saw any social media posting from me about the opportunity. You probably never saw any news blast. Is because it was very focused. People I knew this thing could help are the only people I reached out to,
right.
right?
So
So
that
it
you
kind of
weren't
bring
putting
that
yourself under unnecessary stress to run a Facebook ad, to go meet 100 new people.
100%.
Because I've been
100%.
really into, and I'd love your perspective on this, cellular repair. A friend got me into cellular repair therapy recently.
Mm,
But I was reading the benefits, and that's a little bit to the side, but it was saying that stress erodes our cells, right?
I do.
From the inside out, and it erodes us even more than we realize. And work is, for most people, their number one cause of stress.
It's kind of sad. So I don't think it's work because it can't be the work anymore. So let me give a little bit of perspective on this, right? I think it's if you talk to a janitor, they're stressed. If you talk to a CEO, they're stressed, right?
Yes.
But one could argue the amount of the physical, and I'm not belaboring anybody here. I'm just talking that the stress the CEO has, the quality of stress is very different than the quality of stress the janitor would have.
Mhm.
Not belittling any of their stress. I don't think it's stress. I think it's really how our relationship to stress. I think in the past we've talked about fear, right?
Yeah.
Fear is not good. Fear is not bad. It's how do we respond to fear? I think that's what the stress is. That the stress is existing in our life because we have an if then statement in our head that if I don't have $1 million, $2 million, 500K, whatever that amount is. Pick a number.
If this person doesn't respond to my email, it can be big,
It
it can
could
be
be
small.
correct, correct. And I recently got yelled by an investor for no fault of mine, and I'm like, to hell with this business. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, no,
Mm,
it's one person, right? And it's their opinion, and they have the right to share their opinion. I don't
mhm,
have the right to take it personally. And my daughter always says to me that just because you've been invited to an argument does not mean that you need to participate in that, right? It's the
mm,
same thing. Just because someone's unloading their crap on you does not mean you need to take it, right?
mhm,
So if I was stressed, I've been stressed my entire life because the consulting work that I used to do, traveling 20, 30 days a weeks, gone, a month gone, right? But it was really I made that stress for me. I didn't have to, right? It's because I thought this is great, and then when I start thinking about it, it was I attached my the importance of the job I did and the results I did became my identity. And if I didn't do that, I felt like I'm wasting away my life, right?
mhm,
And I think that's where I was going to say that people are not stressed because of work. So work is a symptom. But if you go to the
mhm,
deeper cause of why is work stressful, it's because either they're not working on something they like, they hate their
mhm,
job, they hate their life, and work's just becoming another medium. They're just staying busy, but the underlying problem hasn't been solved. The second thing really is that they're afraid of something else. Of if they don't work, something in their life is not going to play out the way they imagine it to play out. Right? I think
mhm,
that disconnect is what's causing the stress, and the only way to deal with that is to be honest with yourself. I mean, that's at least what I think is. I'm sure everyone has a different way of looking at it, but the way I look at it is be honest with yourself. If you want to be a billionaire, be honest about it. You want to be a millionaire,
mhm.
but at what price? The next question is at what cost,
Right.
right?
How did you get honest and rework your own relationship with both stress and honesty? And being honest with yourself about when you were being unwell,
I think
as
it's my
well as
it's
kind of reworking those inner workings of the stress.
the credit goes to my wife. I think she's my ground. I hate it when she does it, and she knows I hate it because I let it know. She asked me a question. So why are you doing this? I don't know. I just want to do it. No, no, no. Why are you doing it? Because you're telling the whole world they should question why. So let me ask you, why are you doing this? Right. And in that moment of decision making, uh, I'm like, I just want to do it, get it done with. I want to get done with it. It's going to take me 2 days and get it. She's like, no, let's answer the question why, so that when you are not able to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you know what's at stake and you won't give up. It's
Mhm,
that reminder, right? I think everyone in their life needs an accountability partner. It's either
mhm.
yourself or somebody third party. Ideally, it's a third party person, right? A coach, a mentor, a friend, a spouse, a child. Doesn't matter. Age is
Oh, a
immaterial.
child will keep you accountable.
Oh, they will.
They're a great
As
accountability
long as
partner
you're
on
not
so many
yelling at
levels.
them. I was yelled at my younger daughter the other day. She's like, "We need a new car." I'm like, "Why do you need a new car?" She's like, "I've been telling you we need a new car." I'm like, "I'm gonna buy it." If you don't buy it, if you the way you think about it, I told her that, well, I don't know what kind of car I want to buy right now. If you want to buy it, I have to look at options. She's like, this way it's gonna be 2039 before we have a car, right?
She's honest with you.
She's
It goes
honest. She's
back to
like,
that honesty vein. If a young people aren't afraid
they're
to
not.
not to hold their opinions and just really give them out there. They don't hold them in as adults do.
Correct. Correct. No, 100%. So I think that's to answer your question, Brooke. It's really, I think I got lucky. I got
Mhm.
married into that questioning life, but
Yeah.
maybe most people are not there. So I think what I would recommend for them is that if they have a morning practice, maybe journal it, maybe make it a habit instead of
Yeah.
doing it when you're stressed. Build that muscle, especially when you're happy, when things are
Mhm.
going the way they're going, with the way you want them to go. Take time
Mhm.
away in a sacred space and build that muscle so that when you need it, you already have that muscle. Right?
Right.
There's a matter of time when you need it. All of us need it because life will never go the way we want it to go. Um,
Absolutely not.
how do you handle that, Brooke? Something like
So
this.
for me, I actually have sort of an interesting practice. So what is something that one of my big mentors taught me, and it's when you're struggling with something. Perhaps here's a great easy example. Um, Somebody didn't respond to your email, and it's really triggered you, and it's made you feel less than or unworthy or whatever it is. So what? Like essentially, what does that mean
Yeah.
about me? And really go down that rabbit hole until you hit the core. And for most people, the sort of major fear or underlying fear or core fear, if you will, is one of three, four, five, six, seven, eight things. And for me, if I travel down the rabbit hole, it's usually to do with dreams. Now, for some people, that's
Mm,
to do with power. For some people, that's to do with self worth. It's all incredibly different. But knowing yourself, questioning yourself, sometimes even out loud, sometimes in your head, you don't want to seem crazy at the supermarket, but asking yourself either why, so what does that mean about me?
right.
All very important.
And when you say so what, how do you how do you not just dwell in that question? How do you know when there's enough so whats have been asked and you hit that point? Is there a
Usually, when you ask enough, it's gonna be a big overarching thing. It's not gonna be from ego or vanity. It's gonna be, "I'm scared of this big
got it?
overarching thing." And usually it's gonna end up in the same bucket. So many of your fears or worries or stressors, for me, will end up in the same place if I so
Love
what
it.
them enough. And that's true for most people.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting, and I don't know if you felt this in in your recent hospital visits and healthcare stuff. Is
Mhm,
that kind of like we talk about planning, we talk about legacy planning, we talk about all these things, right? One of the things that, at least in this country, I can't speak for when I say this country, US. I don't know where you're listening. This you may where you may listen to this episode from, but healthcare is super expensive in this country, right? And like in my
mhm,
father-in-law's case, we may need care at home, right? And care at home is expensive. It's like somewhere between $30 to $40 an hour, and that adds up, especially when somebody's retired, right? Now, in this case, they're fortunate that they have the capital allocated for healthcare reasons, but most of us don't or may not, right? Depending upon where we are at that time. And it may happen this early. He's 90, but this may happen early enough when you're 60 or 70, where you're still in your capital accumulation stage, right? Where you're still growing it, where you still have time because you're expecting that healthcare to pounce on you at 85 or so, right? It's kind of like now you start thinking about, okay, what is the mechanism to do that? I used to hate life insurances when people talked about life insurance products to me. Now I've since changed my mind on a lot of different
mhm,
things because it could be used as an investment vehicle if designed properly. But more importantly, there's a long term care that you can attach to your life insurance policy, right? That is
mhm,
the absolute must for everyone to get. If you're listening to this from United States of America, you have to, because that cost, even 4 or 5 hours a week, 4 or 5 hours a day for 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 months, that adds up very quick. $30 an hour doesn't seem much when it's for one
mhm,
hour. But if it's for 20, 30 days in a month, that quickly adds up.
right.
And especially if you're on a path of really no major recovery, where it's an ongoing maintenance at that point, right? So that thing adds up. I would say that when you, as you're thinking about it, not always think about quadrupling or 10xing your money, because you always want to look at the investment. Also think about these abnormalities in life that may happen to us at any time. I'm calling it abnormalities, but they are the realities, right? They
Right.
are the only reality that people around us and us, we're going to get sick. Um, uh, Unfortunate reality, because
Unfortunate. We
we're
don't
not,
want that to happen,
we don't
but
want that to
unfortunately
happen.
that is true.
Correct. It's true because of life we live. So I think one of the things is that as you're thinking about planning ahead and your dreams and your goals, everything is great, but also think about these contingency plans where if things don't work the way you want it to work out,
Mhm.
what's your plan B, C, and D so that your family doesn't get burdened? Because then most of us don't want our kids to pay for our care.
No.
Most of us don't, and hopefully we'll never have to. But it requires planning. And it requires planning. It requires consideration. It requires thinking, and it requires accepting the fact that we're mortals. And it's just a lot of these things where hopefully you don't have to go through a patch where somebody in your life is sick to a point where you have to start thinking about these things, and you're thinking about these conversations where I'm sure Brooke and I are not the only ones talking about it, that other people in your lives are also talking about the same thing, especially if you have older parents. This is a
Mhm.
reality. It's a reality in this country, and I don't think it's getting any better.
One thing I'm thinking of when you're talking is what is one tip or strategy that you've taken away from this week that perhaps you knew or perhaps is new that you've been implementing just to keep yourself present and to keep yourself, the stress, the anxiety, the worries at bay?
I think it's the question to ask is that what's the worst that can happen, right? You have to ask yourself that question. What's the worst? So we'll talk in this example. The worst in this case is that worst is you may lose somebody in your life. It's very bad. It's very hard. It's very sad. But if that's the worst, you have to then start building from there. But what if that doesn't happen, right? Because you have to project that worst case so that you can articulate that, so you're not keeping it in and feeling guilty that you want to think about it but you're not thinking about it, right? You have to acknowledge it because it's anything is a possibility. Is that what's the worst that can happen in any incident in your life that you're unhappy with, and then figure out, you have your floor at that point, and then everything else on top of it is ceiling, right? Even a marginal increment from that floor is a happy path, right?
Hmm.
So you're
And it
building your
takes that power from that situation when you verbalize it, right? Because
correct.
you don't want to give that situation so much looming power and so much looming anxiety that you're thinking about it all of the time.
Yeah, kind of like somebody losing their job, right? A friend of mine lost their job after 22 years working at a company. He's depressed. I can relate to it because it happened to me, not at 22, but I worked a long time. I can relate to that. But again, the worst thing is, what's the worst that can happen, right? Can I survive on my savings for the next 1 or 2 years? In his case, he can. So why are we stressed
Yeah.
about it? Can you not find a job in 2 years? Well, there's probably a different problem than if you can't. But or you're making $200,000, you can find a job for 60K. You can find a job. That's not a problem. You're unhappy because you can't find the job that you want. It's
Right.
again, you're setting yourself up to be unhappy because you're setting the bar so high that you're going to be. But what's the worst case? I may have to take a 60K job. Now, a 100K job is a better job than 60K. And now I'm not saying you have to accept it, but anything above is happiness, right? So the goal is, there's a great book called Gap and the Gain by my mentor, Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Read that book. It basically talks about the same
Mhm.
concept. We always think about where do we have to go, and we forget about how far have we come. If you focus on how far have we come, the journey to where we need to go becomes easier, right? Because now you're happy, you're rooted in gratitude, you're rooted in success, you're not being self-critical. Well, look at all I've done. So what's another few miles to go? I can accomplish that as well, right? I think it's one of those things where look at your worst case and think about what you have accomplished to give you that power and energy to propel forward.
I love it. So, as we're wrapping up, you mentioned an amazing deal. Give a little bit of context on that. Are you still taking applicants for those who are listening?
Very next for the next few days, yes. So the opportunity is about
So, you
we're
got to
part
get on it fast, people. You can't wait forever.
right. If you're listening to this next week, the deal may be closed by then. It's really an ATM business opportunity that we're
Right.
partnering with an operator.
Mhm.
It's we can talk details if somebody's interested. Let me know. But it's really, we're buying the ATMs through our fund, and we're giving the opportunity for the operator to run it for us, manage it, and everything else. And there's a revenue split that happens at the operator level. So the
And you
collateral that we
always are
have
running deals like this. So,
will
definitely, if people
always.
are interested, he's always got something up his sleeve. So, reach out to him.
Yeah, definitely. So the returns are great. It's a cash flow centric deal. As again, if you reach out to me and say, should I invest in this deal? It's the wrong question. It's really tell me this is what you want to accomplish, and I can tell you what's going on in our world that can help you achieve that goal. Or if you don't
Right.
know what your goal is, ping me. we can have that conversation as well, and I can share my understanding and my life experiences to see if we can help you figure out the goal.
Is there anything you want to share as a last parting word before you sign off? Anything on your heart?
Figure out what ticks you. Figure it out. The sooner we figure it out, it could be anything. Like it could be gardening. That doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be money making. Figure out what ticks you in life and make sure you're finding time to do that. That's really what
Mhm.
one thing that I'm focusing on with my wife gone full time in school. Right now, I really have 4 hours or 5 hours a day to work now. And as I'm getting older, it takes me time to focus. I'm realizing that. It takes me like an hour to focus and then 2 hours to finish something. And then I have to go cook food for my kids. I'm like, this context switching is getting
And then
for
you're
old.
thinking about cutting peppers, and you're like,
Yeah. Oh my
hmm.
God. Great. I need somebody to help me with that.
You
But
have to flip in and out of your different energies. It's taking
correct.
some time.
Completely agree. So I think that, but there's I love spending time with my kids, right? So for me, it was always needed. That's why I left my corporate job. But I got absorbed in business so much that I forgot that, right? So this kick that I always call things as kick that life gave me, where my wife decided to go back to school. It's forcing me to do something that I love to do, which is talking to my girls, right? And having these conversations where I'm learning so much from them, and they are quick, right? They
They
say to
are.
me, "You say this all the time." Like I'm telling them, I'm addicted to YouTube Shorts. Can you help me? And now I'm hearing every time I have a YouTube short, "Dad, you're watching YouTube short. Shut it off. Remove YouTube."
Well,
I'm like,
they
"This
are
is
those
great.
great accountability partners we
This
talked
is
about a
great."
little bit earlier. The best ones you could ever money could ever buy.
Correct, correct. Well, that's really the parting comment here, Brooke. Again, thank you for doing this. I love these conversations. Hopefully, it's
I
valuable to the
think we
listeners
had a
as
good
well.
one, and something that I would love is if there's something you want us to touch on, something that's on your heart, your mind, pop a comment. It can be any level of randomness. It can be anything. But we
Yeah,
love to have a play with it.
perfect. Well, thank you again for listening. Thank you again, Brooke.
Yeah.
Anytime I have a conversation with you, I walk away with something interesting. Thank you.
Well, let's hope. And thank you to everybody who listened. We are super glad you joined us on this Thursday morning.